I want you to get together.
I'm ready to talk about the Millennial Kingdom. This theory that you told me about that I had never heard blew my mind. How it ties in with like the Middle Ages, right?
Well, that's the question.
Okay.
There's a lot about this that's up for speculation. We have ideas,
If
we have theories, we're working it out. It's brand new, really. It's fresh for most people. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I'm saying there's a lot of stuff we can't ignore, is what I'm trying to say.
okay.
And yeah, I apologize for inviting you onto my podcast and then just laying all that on you. I didn't.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop myself. It was like verbal truth diarrhea. I just kept coming out with it, and I couldn't stop. And I kept thinking to myself, like, Paul, why are you doing this? Just stop it. He's clearly like, this is too much right now. Just stop
Yeah,
it.
you just kept
Yeah.
pummeling me. It just kept hitting. No, I thoroughly loved it. I've talked about it to 100 people. Uh, everybody I know, I'm like, uh, there's a theory out there, and then I have no clue what I'm talking about. So please, if you have time and don't mind, would you walk me? Would you take today to walk me through this?
Okay, I'll try and cover most bases.
Okay.
I'm not going to be able to thoroughly explain every single nuance today in like 2 hours. It's just not going to happen. What I'll try my best to do in this talk is give a foundational overview of most of the talking points involved around this theory, and it's a working theory. Let's bear that in mind. We're still figuring things out. There's
Right.
multiple options for certain sections of this theory where it could have gone. So I'll try my best to relay as much as I can. But the basic premise to work off here is that what most modern Christians are waiting for today is the return of Jesus Christ after the tribulation. And we all have
Yes.
our eyes on the signs. We're trying to discern the signs around us, trying to determine who the Antichrist will be, what the mark of the beast will be, all of those things. We're kind of looking for them and waiting for those signs to happen, which will be the signs of the coming of the Son of Man in the clouds, okay? Which will be tribulation, judgment, and then obviously a millennial reign is what people are waiting for. And people get to live with Christ for 1,000 years, as it says in Revelation 20. So
Yeah.
people are pretty adamant we're living in that time. We're living in the time just before tribulation. It's just around the corner. It's just about to happen. Okay, that's what people are pretty adamant where we at. That's the mainstream thought of not only conspiracy Christians, but just mainstream churchianity. That is the view of modern Christians. We are in that
Right.
time. There have always been other views out there which say, well, it's a spiritual kingdom and we're living in it now, and that goes on forever and ever. And there's no physical kingdom and all these type of things. You have amillennialists who believe that type of thing. Um, what this theory says kind of blows it all out of the water. It's a completely new take on the situation. There has been a worldview called preterism, which was created a while ago, I think about the 1600s by I think it was people say it was a Jesuit, but it may have been a Jesuit. But this theory we have today is not preterism, classically so called. It's something else, and a lot of people who don't like this idea will attack preterism and think that's what
Okay.
we're talking about. Most preterists, even they believe it's a spiritual kingdom. And we're not saying that here. We're talking about a real, physical, tangible 1,000 years where Christ reigned on earth. This theory posits it's all already happened. We're not living in the times just before tribulation. We're living after the 1,000 year reign of Christ. He's already been on earth. He has reigned for 1,000 years on earth with his
Hmm.
resurrected saints and the elect who survived through tribulation. And now we're living in the time that comes just after that time, that 1,000 years, which is basically called the little season, where Satan is let loose to deceive the nations, gather an army from the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, whose number is of the sands of the sea, to make war with the camp of saints. And then once they make war and surround the beloved city, fire will come down from heaven, and then we'll all be present for the great white throne judgment at the end of time. People will be judged. Those who are obviously judged badly are thrown into the lake of fire, and then there's a new heaven and earth, and that's the eternal kingdom. after the little season. Most modern mainstream churchianity thinkers believe once tribulation happens, the eternal kingdom comes then. That's not what Revelation says. It says there is a 1,000-year reign of Christ where he rules with an iron rod with his resurrected saints who are blessed to take part in that first resurrection because they get to rule with Christ for 1,000 years. Then it says in plain English, when the 1,000 years has ended. So it's not eternal. It's a period of time that has a beginning and an end. Satan's let loose for a little season to deceive all the nations. And most arguments against this are pretty much based around the idea, this misunderstanding that it's an eternal kingdom and there's no way that the little season will be that long because, Satan wouldn't be able to deceive that many people in that much time because Christ is right there. But what we're saying is, how is Satan supposed to deceive all the nations to make war with the camp of saints if they know that's Jesus, the King, the Son of God, who's been ruling for 1,000 years? No one would make war with it if they knew that was the case. So there must be a time or period when Satan's ruling where people don't know that Christ is on earth and has ruled for 1,000 years. The people have to have been deceived so much that they don't even know when they are, never mind where they are. And this theory also posits and has an explanation for the alien agenda, the UFO agenda. So the agenda has always been, and it's been pushed on us for a long time, that there's going to be an alien invasion of some kind. And most Christians, conspiracy theorists, have said it's a deception. Really, the aliens are demons, and it's the Nephilim returning with the fallen angels, and they're going to pretend to be aliens from out of space, to fool us into a new age agenda of some kind. Offer us light bodies and ascension, then they'll offer us a mark of the beast of some kind, immortality, where we'll beg for death and it'll flee from us and all these type of things. But really, they're not aliens, they're demons. And I was there for a long time believing that's possibly the case. And maybe something like that may still go down. I'm not saying that, I'm not ruling it out. There could still be a fake alien invasion, which is perpetuated by demons, demonic forces. That's very possible, I say extraterrestrial. They're from somewhere else on Earth, not from space. That's that much is clear. Yes. But this Millennial Kingdom theory kind of explains a lot and why there is such a push for this agenda, because the New Jerusalem, or the beloved city as it's described, is a giant floating city that comes down from heaven to earth. It's Mount Zion. It's where Christ will rule from his throne, and from New Jerusalem. People believe that's supposed to be the Middle East. I don't think that's right. I think we've been lied to about the geography of where these things will actually go down. If you look at most old world maps, there's something in the center of the Earth. There's something there in the middle of a stationary Earth. You know what that means. So what are these islands in the center? What's this Rupus Nigra in the center of these maps? What is going on here? And it's possible Christ never left after his millennial reign. He's just been hidden from us. He's just not on the maps anymore. And he's still ruling, because he is the eternal ruler of everything until the end of time. He is still technically here on Earth, never went anywhere, with his saints in the center of the Earth. And for it to say Satan gathers an army from all the corners to surround the camp of saints, well, that would be something that's got to be in the middle of all four of those corners. If you look at a square and you draw a line from all the corners to the center, that's how you would surround something, right? That may be the very situation we're in. So that's the theory in a nutshell. Christ is still here in the center of the earth. The cameras are just no longer on him. The whole nation's deceived. No one knows he's there because no one's pointing anything to him. You can't go and explore that area yourself. It's completely blocked off from public access. There's been agendas at play to hide this history, completely bury it. And there'll come a time where they probably will point the cameras back at Christ. And it will look like a giant invading mothership from space, no doubt. From our new brainwashed program perspective through all the medias we've been prepped for to prepare for an alien invasion. And then it's possible they'll release the demons. And it'll look like we're being attacked by the mothership. But really it's a false flag. It's these secret societies and agents of Satan, basically, making it seem like we're under attack from an alien force. So they'll release their own UFOs from the underground bunkers. They'll release all the genetically modified chimera hybrids they've been breeding in these bunkers. And it'll look like monsters are roaming all over the earth, tearing humans apart. UFOs are flying around, destroying cities. It'll look like we're under attack. After they've pointed the cameras towards this giant floating city in the sky, which they'll claim to be the mothership from outer space. So this is all a narrative I'm weaving here based on what we've learned so far through the conspiracy world. We know these agendas are at play. To what end we never fully understood. Is it possible they're going to fake an alien invasion once Christ's kingdom can't be hidden anymore? And, they need to trick us in some way, and I think that's how that story would go down. So there's another theory kind of tagged onto this whole idea. But the basic premise is Christ has already ruled for 1,000 years. We are not living in the times just before tribulation. All the signs of the times we do see through the media are completely fabricated, convoluted, purposely designed to look like tribulation events, to make us believe we're in that time zone. But there'll always be a new mark of the beast. There'll always be some kind of sign of a third temple being built, of something like that. Even though that was never in the Bible about building a third temple. It says that the temple will be destroyed, which it was in 70 AD, and that's what we kind of have. So there's the theory summarized very quickly. There's a lot to go into there and dig into. We can start getting into the words of Jesus himself to try and show the evidences for this. But I've just given you a massive overview of what the theory is there very quickly.
Yes. Yes. That's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure you can expand on this, but the 1,000-year reign of Christ ended already, and Satan is on the earth now for a short season.
Yes.
Christ, in this theory, is also still on the earth in the geographical center of Earth.
That's the theory. Other people will speculate he's in the South Pole Ring or something, or an island to the south somewhere. There's been many ideas. Now, the reason I kind of lean more towards the center idea is because if you were to rule an Earth, you would want to be in the center. You want to be the center of all things. It would make sense. That is the center of the footstool of God. That is where it's all happening, type of thing, and everything radiates out from there. People have looked at things, phenomena like the Aurora Borealis, for example, which emanates out from the North Pole. And obviously the South Pole too, but when you get involved with the firmaments, reflections can happen and cycles can look like there's, I'm not going to get into the cosmology necessarily, but what we do know is the North Pole is infamous for Aurora Borealis emanating light and energy. And people speculate that is from Jesus Christ himself in the center of the earth. And we've just been lied to about where it comes from. We're told it's radiation from the sun. Could it not just simply be light energy from the Son of God instead? Who knows what it truly is. But that's one reason. Wow. Another idea is things like, this is a fun one for listeners out there, and this might seem silly, but we know the enemy work with inversion. Okay, they take darkness for light and light for dark. They take the truth and they turn it on its head. Now, if you think about the story of Santa Claus, where does he live?
North Pole.
He lives in the North Pole. What does he look like?
Jolly.
He's an old man with a big grey beard, right?
Old man, big grey beard.
Okay, so is that not God? From a stereotypical cheesy media standpoint, that's how they always portray him, right? An old man with a big white beard, What are Santa Claus's powers? He knows.
Well, he could be. He knows when you're doing good or bad. He can go anywhere at any time, like in a blink. He gives you gifts.
Okay, so he's like a god, isn't he? He's omnipotent.
He keeps a list, of who does bad. Yeah,
he's keeping a list of your sins. He's checking whether you're naughty or nice. He's He's present everywhere, all times, watching everybody. And this is God. We're talking about God here. It's a Christ inversion. And he's keeping a list and he's checking it twice. Well, Christ says he doesn't keep lists, he forgives. He absolves you of those sins through his sacrifice. Santa's
Yes.
the Antichrist. He's the opposite of that. He keeps a list and he's checking it twice. He lives in the center of the earth. Jesus lives in the center of the earth. He's a fat, jolly old man. Jesus isn't depicted as a fat, white bearded old man, but God is. So in a way, it's kind of the opposite of Christ there too. He gives you gifts, physical, material things. Jesus gives you the
Yes.
gifts of heavenly things. Keep your eyes on treasures in heaven, not on earth. It's an inversion of Jesus Christ. And he's up there
Wow.
with all of his elves working away. Jesus is in the center with all of his saints, with the beloved city. These are
Yeah.
satanic inversions of the truth of the matter. What's really in the North Pole is Jesus Christ with his saints, but we believe in Santa Claus and his elves. These, and this is how the enemy works. This is what they've done to us. They've made us worship an Antichrist figure based off of the truth of the situation. So there's a fun one for people, just to pique your interest there. But you'll start to see,
Oh,
once you think about this theory, a lot of these things start to crop up, these little tidbits like I've just given you there, that start answering questions for why the world is the way it is, and what these true symbols and messages truly mean. You know, it gets weird. So people think he's in the North Pole. I've given you two basic reasons there: the Aurora Borealis and these other things. But you look at the old maps. There's clearly something in the center of the Earth. There's an island with 4 rivers running from it, with a mountain in the middle on most of these maps. You look at quite a lot of
mm-hmm.
ancient cultures all around the Earth, and they all talk about a beautiful, ethereal city inhabited by giants in the center of the Earth. Agartha is another example of this. Shangri-La is another one. It's kind of a mythos going throughout all cultures. And they likely all have this mythos because they all lived during a time where Christ quite literally ruled from the center of the earth and people knew about it. And it says when he had his millennial reign, people make pilgrimages to the feasts and the celebrations every year going on in Zion. And those who didn't will get droughts. I think it's Zechariah that explains this in the book of Zechariah. And it's possible that's what happened. You look at the huge swaths of deserts all over the earth. Are these the nations who didn't make that pilgrimage and didn't go along with the agenda of Christ at the time? Didn't bow down to the king, He says he rules with an iron rod. It's not necessarily that everybody wanted to be ruled by him. He still had his enemies. But his rule definitely brought a stability which the earth has never seen before. 1,000 years of relative peace, unheard of before throughout all of humanity. So you have that. You have this 1,000 years of unencumbered peace where the devil is locked away in the pit for 1,000 years. He's not there anymore. He's not tempting people. He's not messing with people. He's not judging people. He's in the pit for 1,000 years. Imagine 1,000 years where humanity doesn't have Satan whispering in his ear and the Son of God, the King himself, is ruling from the center of the earth. How do you think that would look after 1,000 years? What do you think people would do during that time with the time? And the ability. Don't forget the resurrected saints. They don't take part in the second death. They're already done. The second judgment is not a thing for them. They're already in their divine resurrected light bodies, intended for the new heaven and earth in the future. They don't have to go through the judgment. They're already judged. It's done. They were martyrs for Christ. They've proven themselves in a way. Those who take part in that first resurrection are resurrected in super advanced human bodies, way beyond what we have. These are the saints, and imagine what you can do with that kind of knowledge, that kind of ability, that perception of reality. The humans that survived during that time, who barely survived tribulation, well, they would have been in awe of these people, these resurrected saints, the things they were doing, and people would have been inspired. And when you're inspired and you're a human, you get creative and you make things around you look beautiful. And if you look around, you'll start to realize signs of him being here are everywhere. Signs of people living through a time of 1,000 years of peace are everywhere, and it's through the buildings that are everywhere on Earth. And people have been calling them Tartarian for a long time. This theory postulates these are not from one specific culture that supposedly somehow became a global culture from Siberia in the center of the Asia or something like that, from a disparate group of random nomadic travelers that somehow got together and built the greatest kingdom ever seen on Earth and then suddenly just vanished. This is what the Tartarian theorists have been speculating on for a while. I believe the 1,000-year reign of Christ answers the question. Where did the civilization go? Well, the 1,000 years ended. and Satan was let loose. And it seems like there was a huge destruction event called the Mud Flood when he was released. And it was his attempt to bury Christ's kingdom after his release. It didn't work. And most of the, we discover, most of the 1700s, 1800s, and 1900s was a lot of people digging buildings out of the ground and repurposing them. This is when secret societies cropped up, like the Freemasons, who found a bunch of free masonry laying around and laid claim to it. They founded everything, they didn't build any of it. It was all remnants from this time where there was 1,000 years of absolute peace on the earth, where people found the time to actually care about what they made, and buildings were made to a standard and beautiful that lasted, with just a testimony to the peace on earth that was there, And a lot of people don't like that idea. A lot of people in the Christian community do not like to imagine that buildings would have been built during a physical reign on earth. But I would say people still need roofs over their heads. Buildings would get built. Artwork would still get made because people are just kind of like that, whether Christ is around or not. You can judge the style as much as you want to, and you can say, well, Jesus wouldn't care about that, but he was a carpenter. He was a builder. He built things. He built homes. It's not beyond his speculation to understand that people need those basic creature comforts to have a good life. I think he would have been okay with people building opulent buildings around him. Not a problem. That doesn't diminish his eternal kingdom in heaven in any way. To create something akin to a heaven on earth, why would that? But that's I went on a bit there. I'll stop. I'll let you say some more things. But as you can see, the more you start to unpeel this onion, you start to realize, okay, there's a lot of evidence for this everywhere, and it's answering a lot of questions. Especially if you're a conspiracy theorist, this is answering a lot of things we've all been thinking about for many years here.
I want you to get together.